Hey, this is Steve with Dabble, and in this tutorial we're going to look at building an AI-driven IVR using Jovo and Twilio. You are probably familiar with the term IVR, or the acronym I should say, but just in case, it stands for Interactive Voice Response System, and it's what you usually encounter when you call most businesses these days. It's the thing that does the press 1 for sales, 2 for service, and so on. But with artificial intelligence, an IVR can go way beyond just providing menu options. Think like Amazon Alexa or Google Assistant, but accessed via the telephone. AI can really open up a ton of possibilities for IVRs and take them to a whole new level. So forget about the boring old IVRs that you're used to and imagine a truly intelligent virtual receptionist that can answer just about any question that you have for it. That's where all of this is going. And I like the term intelligent virtual receptionist because we can keep using the acronym IVR. But anyhow, my goal for this tutorial is to provide a really quick example of how you can get started building an intelligent virtual receptionist using Jovo, which is an awesome framework for building voice apps. And we're going to be using the latest version, which is Jovo 3.0, which now supports Twilio Autopilot, which is the NLU service that we're going to be using from Twilio. So we're going to just kind of build a simple version. But if there's interest, I'll follow this tutorial up with some deeper dives on this topic. But also, before you continue, this stuff changes really, really quickly. So if you're watching this tutorial, let's see, this is March of 2020. So say June of 2020. If you're watching after June of 2020, please visit dabblelab.com/234, and that'll redirect you to the most current version of the tutorial. If you got here following that link, of course, this is the most current version, so you don't need to do anything. All right, with that, let's get into it. Okay, for starters, we're gonna need a Twilio account. So you can head over to twilio.com and sign up there if you don't have one already, or you can use, even better, forgot about this, use dabble.link/Twilio, this here. This is an affiliate link or a referral link, and if you use that, you will get, I think, like $20 of extra credit for free, for like trial credits. And Dabble Lab gets $20 of extra credits too, so it's a win-win. We can use that for our next tutorial, but either way is fine. But once you have an account, you are all set up, and in the next step we will dive into the account and set up our number that we're going to use for our IVR. Okay, once you're logged in, you're going to want to go to the main menu, and you're going to want to find the programmable voice option and click on it. And then from the programmable voice section, we are going to choose the numbers option here. And then we're going to get a number. This is the number that we're going to use to work with our IVR that we're building. So you want to choose get a number. And by default, it selects a number for you, but one of the cool things that you can do is search for different numbers to find a number in the location you want, or maybe you want to do something like, let's see, you can match to different parts. So if you want like a vanity number, like let's find something. So you can just type in a word. We'll use Jovo and see if anything comes up. Oh yeah, there's a lot of matches. So Jovo is 5686. So we could use this in Perry, Georgia here, 777 Jovo. Wonder if we can do like get Jovo. Nothing for get Jovo. Let's try something for Jovo. So we got a lot of for Jovos. Let's see if there's, let's do like go for Jovo. How about that? See if there's anything. Not go for Jovo. What about go to Jovo? We'll see. There's our winner. This is what we're going to use. So we're going to use this 4625686. We'll buy that, and This supports voice, fax, SMS, and MMS, or multimedia messaging service. So buy that number. It costs $1 a month, but right now we're still using the free credits. So this is the number that we're going to use for our IVR. Okay, now we're going to create a really simple autopilot bot from the Twilio console. So you want to go to the main menu and find autopilot. And then from the autopilot section of the console, just choose the start from scratch option. And we're going to call this demo IVR. That. And create bot. And we're not going to do anything with it right now. We're just going to wire everything up. So once the bot is created, the next thing that we're going to do is we're going to create a studio flow. And what we're doing is basically setting everything up so that the telephone number that we've got can call into the bot. So to set up the studio flow, we want to go to another section of the console called Studio. And if you scroll down to the runtime down here, you'll find Studio. And we want to create a new flow. And we're going to just call this also Demo IVR. Demo IVR. Like that. And we're going to start from scratch with this as well. And we are going to pull one widget in here, which is a send to autopilot. So this is going to be pretty simple, and it's going to handle incoming calls. So we're wiring up this autopilot widget to handle calls, and we need to do a little bit of configuration, which is just to set it up to talk with or to default to our demo IVR bot. And we're going to save that. And the last thing that we need to do now is take the number that we bought and wire it up so that it works with the studio flow that we just set up here. So to do that, we're going to go back to our menu and back to programmable voice and find our number. Okay, so go to your numbers and we'll find go to Jovo number under manage numbers. There it is. And we basically here are just going to set up the webhook that it's going to use. But rather than a webhook, we're going to choose the Studio Flow option and select the Studio Flow Demo IVR that we just set up. So now we've got everything wired up once we save this. And at this point, we actually have a functioning IVR. It's a basic one, but it'll work. So we'll test it first, just what we have, and then we'll move on to the Jovo stuff. Okay, so to test our current setup, we're going to head back over to Autopilot, and we're going to use the simulator. So if we go into the bot that we set up, and then over here to simulator, we can simulate an interaction with the bot. We've got two options. The default is text. So an autopilot bot can be used not just for IVRs, it can be used for really any conversational channel. So SMS or Facebook Messenger or web chat, whatever you want to use. But we're using this as an IVR, so we're going to go over here to voice call and test it out. And it provides this the ability to essentially make a call to the bot integrated into the simulator here, but we're also going to test using the actual number toward the end. But for right now, we'll just use the simulator. So let's give it a try.
Thank you for using your demo account. Please upgrade to a full account to remove this message.
Hello, what can I help you with today?
What are your operating hours?
I'm sorry, didn't quite get that. Please say that again.
What can you do?
Hello, what can I help you with today?
Nothing.
Thank you. Please reach out again if you need anything.
Okay, so our intelligent virtual receptionist is not all that intelligent yet, but that's where Jovo comes in, and that's what we're going to look at next. We'll set up the Jovo tools and take a look at what we need to do on the development side. Okay, before we get into the Jovo stuff, I just want to recap what we have right now and how it's going to work with the Jovo code that we're going to write in just a minute here. So what's happening at this point is the user is making a telephone call, and this call is going to the Twilio number that we set up earlier, which is set up through Twilio's programmable voice. And then we've configured that number to work with a studio flow, and the studio flow is then handing the call off to Autopilot. And Autopilot is set up with tasks that are going to recognize things that users say. So by default, there's a greeting task that we looked at, and that's going to be sort of the prompt, the first thing. But when a user says something like, what are your hours, or anything like that, rather than the old IVRs where you would press 1 for sales, 2 for support, so on and so forth, because we're using natural language understanding, we can set it up to recognize anything that the user says, and Autopilot will we set that all up in Autopilot. We create the model there. But actually acting on that is done by code. So for example, if somebody says, what are your hours? That would, in a lot of cases, be like a lookup to a database to see, what days are open or what locations are open, and store hours and holidays and all of that stuff. And that's where the code logic comes in. And that's what we're going to be doing in Jovo. In Jovo, now, Jovo version 3, it's set up where you can really easily work with the requests that are going to come in from Autopilot. And so that's what we're going to do. We're going to be working on our local computer. So all of the requests are going to come in through this flow. But for this tutorial, Autopilot is going to be making a request to the code on our local computer. If this were to go into production, we would host this code someplace else. And actually Twilio has Twilio functions, which I don't have that box in here because we're hosting it locally, but all of this code could be hosted by Twilio as well. It could also be hosted by AWS or anywhere else. But for this tutorial, we're going to look at working with the code on our local computer. The first thing that you're going to need to do is head over to jovo.tech and download the Jovo CLI. And you can do that under the For Developers menu, go to Get Started. And there are instructions here for installing the Jovo CLI. And that's really all that you need. The install process is pretty straightforward. It uses NPM, and you just install the package globally. So you'll need Node.js, of course. I'm not going to go through the installation process because there's a tutorial here and it steps you right through it. It's pretty simple, and I've got it all installed. But that's the starting point. That's going to be a requirement, and we're going to be also working in Visual Studio Code. So that is going to be our code editor, and I'm going to be working with the integrated terminal in Visual Studio Code. Okay, so once we have the Jovo CLI installed, we can head into Visual Studio Code and get to work. So we're going to start by just confirming that the Jovo CLI is installed by using the Jovo -- version command. And you should be using version 3.0 or later to do what we're going to do here with Autopilot, because 3.0 is the first version that has support for Autopilot. Once you've done that, the next command that you're going to use is the Jovo new command, and we're going to use that to create a new project called Demo IVR. And that's going to go fetch a basic Jovo app or basic project that is scaffolded for us. So it kind of gives us what we need to get started. The default is an app that supports Alexa and Google Assistant. Again, Jovo is a framework for building apps that are cross-platform, but we need to make a change because we want our app to support Autopilot, which is not one of the defaults. And so to do that, we're going to do a couple of things. First of all, I'm going to just I'm going to copy this because I'm going to cheat to get the support for Autopilot in here, but we can comment out the stuff that we're not going to use. And that's one of the nice things about the framework, the Jovo framework, is that it's very modular, so you can plug and play just the pieces that you want. And we are not even scratching a little bit of it. There is so much functionality in the framework. You really need to head out to jovo.tech and dive into the docs there to get a sense of how much there is. You know, database support, like I said, different platforms, but we are just gonna like keep it simple and just look at creating a simple IVR for Autopilot, and it's Twilio Autopilot. So this is the module that we need, this Jovo platform Twilio Autopilot, and so we're going to need to get that with npm. So I'm going to go in here and then do npm install, and then Jovo platform Twilio Autopilot, like that. I don't think that's going to affect us, but this will. We need to add Autopilot here. Okay, so believe it or not, with just that, we actually have a really, really simple backend for Autopilot ready to go. And one of the cool things is that we can also use the Jovo run command to run a local server that also includes a webhook that you can use to access it through the public internet, which is what we're going to need for Autopilot, because that's out in the Twilio cloud. So you do Jovo run, and that's going to run your local server. And another cool thing is if you've included the debugger, which is included by default, you can just type a period, and that's going to open a browser, and you've got this like really nice debugger in here that will show you the requests that are coming in and the responses back. And this is all going through our local code, so we can code locally and test here. But we're going to also just go right in and wire this up now to our Autopilot bot. So I'm going to head back over to Twilio and grab this webhook URL here, which was returned back down here. And in Autopilot, if I go to my bot, and I'm going to start with the greeting. We didn't talk a lot about what's going on here in Autopilot, but basically in Autopilot you create tasks, and tasks are used to classify things that users say that would be associated with some functionality that your IVR can support. So for example, it'll start with a greeting, and that's the initiation task. So when the phone rings, it's going to pick up and the user is going to hear something by default. And that's what we're looking at right here. And then we can create new tasks to support additional functionality, and we'll create one called operating hours, just to illustrate how it works. But to wire this into our Jovo code, we would go over here to program, and now we're using by default code that is coming from a static JSON file, and that's sort of the default setup when you set up a new Autopilot bot. But what we want to do is, rather than using this static code, we want to use the dynamic backend that we're setting up in Jovo. So we can go to the action URL here and then paste in that webhook, the Jovo webhook, and we save that. And we don't need to build in this case because we're not making a change to the model yet. We will in a minute, but let's go back and look at our Jovo code for a second here to see what we might expect when we run this. So there's a handler called launch that is then calling this hello world intent. So we should see this come back in our phone system. we would change this to something like, thank you for calling ABC Company, of course, but just for testing, let's make sure that we get this back. So I'm going to head back out to Autopilot, and remember the simulator. We're going to go over the simulator, and we're going to start a call.
Thank you for using your demo account. Please upgrade to a full account to remove this message.
Hello world. What's your name?
All right, so it is working. It's not yet providing all the functionality that we want, but it is responding back from our backend code. So here is the response, and let's change that so that you can see that for sure. And I'll say thank you for calling. How can I help you? And we'll save that. I don't remember if I need to stop the server and start it again, but I think I do. I'm pretty sure. Okay, now let's try that same test again. We'll go back over here and call.
Thank you for using your demo account. Please upgrade to a full account to remove this message.
Thank you for calling. How can I help you?
Okay, so now you can see we've got it wired up to our backend code. Let me show you one more thing, and then we're gonna just recap here, because right now we actually have a functional IVR. We could call that number that we set up earlier, and it would be all functional and working. But let me just walk through, as the last bit, adding some new functionality. So we'll start with our tasks here, and we'll add a new task called operating hours. And for that operating hours task, we will add some samples. So we're going to need to train it to recognize when somebody is wanting to know the operating hours. So we'll go over here and we'll do something like, what are your hours? Are you open today? Are you open on weekends? What are your hours on Monday? And you get the idea. So we want to provide as many samples as possible. You don't have to come up with everything that a user might possibly say, but there needs to be enough data where the machine learning that is underneath this can figure out what the user wants. And then we're going to build the model. And the other thing that we need to do is wire this up. So by default, again, it's just going to respond back with this, but we want to go over here to the action bin and paste in our webhook URL, the Jovo webhook URL, and then we want to save that. And now we've got it set up in Autopilot, but we aren't handling this in our Jovo code. So we want to head back over here, and in here we just want to do something like this. Just copy this, paste it, and we'll just name this what we named that intent, or the task rather, and we named it operating hours, like that. And then we can change this to, we are open weekdays from 9 a.m. to 5 p.m. And then maybe here we can just say, what else can I assist you with? And up here, I'll change this reprompt here to, can I help you? And save that and run this again. And let's go back and test. So we'll go back over here to our simulator call.
Thank you for using your demo account. Please upgrade to a full account to remove this message.
Thank you for calling. How can I help you?
What are your hours?
We are open weekdays from 9 a.m. to 5 p.m.
Okay, so at this point we have our fully functional IVR. This is a really simple example, obviously, but you could add additional functionality by simply creating more tasks and adding code to handle those tasks using Jovo. If you were going to put this into production, I also mentioned earlier that you'd want to host that code someplace other than your local computer, of course, and you could do that using Twilio functions or Lambda. And actually, functionality to deploy that is a part of Jovo also, so we didn't get into that. If hopefully this was helpful. If you'd like more tutorials on building IVRs with Jovo or Twilio, please leave those in the comments. If you have any questions, please leave those and I'll respond just as quickly as possible. And if you did like the video, please like it on YouTube and or subscribe to the Dabble Lab YouTube channel. Thanks so much.